mom, who was so smart, left behind a full-ride scholarship at Michael Reese Hospital in Chicago for me. My dad was a shoe salesman. My sister was born 13 months after me, and my brother was born 6 years after me. My dad's job took us to Ohio when I was 4. He eventually got a job as a machinist, and my mom worked full-time as a nursing assistant. So we had a full-time teenage babysitter. We lived in a typical neighborhood, and our family got together with our neighbors regularly. Most of our family's neighborhood friends had boys. When I was 9 years old, a new boy moved in next door. He talked about sex all the time. He told me things about myself and about my parents that I had never heard before. This new boy and a couple other neighborhood boys took turns doing sexual things to me. They held me down. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I was completely helpless. It was frightening to have no control over what was happening. I was so confused because these boys were my friends, but I knew this wasn't right. This experience awakened feelings in me that I didn't know what to do with. I didn't want anyone to get into trouble and thought the best thing to do was to be quiet about it. I cannot remember everything that happened after this, but somehow my mom knew what had happened. The boy next door went away, but the other boys were friends of our family. Things just stayed the same. We went on like nothing happened and never talked about it. But I started crying out for attention in other ways. I would fake being sick so I wouldn't have to go to school, and as a grade school girl, I was very aware of my body. I was raised in the Catholic Church. As I grew older, our family attended church less and less often, but I received communion, was confirmed, and married Catholic. For me, life was very much about doing things the right way. I even believed I needed to pray for everyone I met in order for them to go to heaven. My mom would lovingly joke with me that I was a good Catholic girl who felt guilty about everything. When I was 11 years old, my dad found work back here in Indiana when the factory he worked at closed. I was so happy to be moving away from Ohio. We moved 2 more times after coming back to Indiana. My mom was busy going to school for her LPN and then her RN, all while working full-time. Dad's work as a machinist was demanding, and he was an alcoholic. I first remember him drinking in Ohio. Living with someone who drinks every day is a very lonely feeling. I didn't have friends over because I was embarrassed by his drinking and didn't want anyone to know the extent of it. I became a quiet girl who always said and did the right thing. I always did what I was told because I didn't want to make life any harder for my parents than it already was. I became withdrawn and shy and learned not to trust anyone. I met my husband as a teenager at a restaurant we both worked at. He was not quiet like I was. He talked all the time to everybody. I thought we would be the perfect complement for each other because we were so opposite. The one thing we had in common was being raised with alcoholic fathers. I thought it would be comforting being with someone who understood how I felt. We got married soon after when I was just 20 years old. We had 2 daughters in the next few years. We were young and immature in our thinking as a husband and wife. I didn't feel close to my husband and was hurt by some of his actions. I had an affair after our second daughter was born and felt justified in doing so. We separated shortly after the affair. During the separation, I had my first spiritual experience. I was driving and talking with God, and I asked him, should I work on my marriage or just move on? And just when I said work on my marriage, a lady driving towards me was nodding her head, yes. I really felt that God was answering my prayer. We both decided we wanted to stay together, but mostly for the girls. We realized we both had much to work on, but this was not an easy task. This proved to be very, very difficult. We both had hurt each other immensely. A few years later, we moved and my husband started a new job. Our third daughter was born just after we moved. We were still part of the Catholic Church where all 3 girls were baptized. We attended church regularly, but eventually left the Catholic Church and started attending a non-denominational Christian church. My husband and I made the decision to quit drinking alcohol so that the girls would not think that in order to have a good time, you had to be drinking. Until this point, I had not had a problem with drinking, but when we quit completely, I missed the confidence I had when I was drinking. This is when I started taking painkillers. Taking pills gave me confidence again. I felt worthy of attention and was less shy on them. It was my secret and no one knew the extent of it, and it was easy to hide. At first, my mom gave me the pain pills, and eventually I started stealing pills from people I knew. I I was caught on several occasions and always felt terrible. I went through several 12-step programs, IOP, NA, and AA. I would do what the program said to do, but would finish and not find any real change in my struggles with addiction. My dishonesty was hard on my marriage and my girls. We attended marriage counseling from secular and Christian counselors, and I received counsel independently. We learned some valuable truths, and for a while my addictions were kept at bay. I love being a mom and found confidence in it because my girls were also awesome. Life is very, very busy. My husband worked a lot of hours, working shift work and doubles and having his own business. I was very involved in this goal and the girls' activities. On top of this, we were foster parents for newborns. I would sporadically use painkillers, but not on a regular basis. Our oldest daughter graduated, went to nursing school, and was married. A couple months later, my dad died from cirrhosis. Although he had quit drinking after being diagnosed with cirrhosis, he died just days from his 62nd birthday. This was my first experience of someone close to me dying. I was close to him as I could be, although he did the best he could at being a father. A difficult upbringing and the use of alcohol to cope left me not a very affectionate man. Our second daughter graduated in 2003. She worked with the mentally disabled at a home in Valparaiso. On August 25th, 2004, I received a phone call from her boyfriend. He said our daughter had been in a car accident. My husband was working, so my daughters and I went looking for the accident. As we pulled closer, we were told to go to the sheriff's department in Knox. Someone drove us there, and while driving, I told God I didn't want to be doing this. I kept hoping someone would bring my daughter there. There were so many people. It was thunderstorming. I just wanted to see my Jessie Ann. My husband came into the station and said, "You know, she didn't make it." I was stunned, so stunned I didn't even realize it was him speaking at first. This just didn't make any sense. I had just spoken to her about 45 minutes before her boyfriend called. She had just turned 20 years old a couple days before. It was surreal, and everything felt like it was in slow motion. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I missed her right from the moment I found out she was gone. Our lives had changed in an instant. One of the hardest things after her death was seeing how everyone kept moving on. I wanted to as well, but I simply had no energy. I knew she was in heaven, but that didn't help with missing her or touching her and talking with her. I had to literally put one foot in front of the other. I can't say I was angry with God. Sorry, guys. I can't say that I was angry with him, but I was hurt. I was confused. I really thought if we did the right things, our perfect life would happen. This was a very humbling time in my life because I knew I couldn't do this on my own. I cried out to God, and I asked people for help. People did help and lifted our family up in prayer. There were a couple people who knew of my struggle with pills, and they prayed for me. I was honest with women about this, so I did not have a problem with pills at this time. I was not working in people's homes to take pills, and my mom did not give me any. And God's sovereignty protected me from my destructive behaviors during this time in my life. 2 years after losing our daughter, my husband and I were on a motorcycle trip with friends for a family reunion. We were meeting some of their family members at a Christian bookstore. For the first time since losing our daughter, my husband and I were asked how many children we had. We had had a bad morning, and I was already crabby. I responded that we have 3, and my husband responded 2. There was complete silence, and she jokingly said, "You guys don't know how many kids you have?" I was so angry and didn't hide it. I was so afraid people would forget about Jessie, and here it seemed my own husband had. I was sarcastic and mean to my husband and this woman who was just trying to create conversation. When we entered the bookstore, there right in front of me was a sign with Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future." I felt the Lord speaking His peace and comfort through that verse. I knew He was with me to handle this. Soon after, my mom moved in with my sister. Mom had COPD, and with frequent doctor visits, personal care and errands were too much for my sister to do on her own. I began helping out twice a week. Mom would give me pain pills and I would take them from her. She would often talk to me about it and say I needed to get a handle on how much I was using. But she kept giving them to me, saying she just wanted me to feel better. She went into hospice in November of 2012. The day before she died, she was crying because she felt so bad about me getting raped over and over as a child, and I was stunned. This was something we had never talked about as adults and that I had essentially erased as much as possible from my memory. After reflecting on this over the last couple of years, I think this is why she would give me pills, to make me feel better. I love my parents dearly. They both had troublesome upbringings, and I know now that they did the best that they could for me and my siblings. Without access to painkillers, I eventually started drinking again. Our youngest daughter graduated in 2008. Being mission-minded, she began traveling outside the U.S. with my husband working and our children out of the house. I easily hid how much I drank. Although I was completely functional, my life consisted, of work, drink, sleep, and working and drinking and sleeping. My husband and I went on several trips to Canada to visit friends. I used this as an excuse for my drinking, would joke that what happens in Canada stays in Canada. My drinking progressed and I drank every day. On days I didn't work, I just drank and slept. It started to consume everything about me. My thoughts were consumed with what I needed to get and how to hide how much I drank. I would hide bottles from my husband and ensure I took care of the garbage so he wouldn't hear the bottles clinking. I became paranoid about people finding out the extent of my drinking. I started not remembering. Looking back, it's very, very pathetic. I drank because I wanted to feel better. I also wanted to be a good Christian woman. I wanted the perfect life and thought if I did things how I was supposed to, life would be perfect. I was able to reach out to the Lord when our daughter died and hold things together, but this I couldn't control. These strongholds were too much. In March of 2015, my husband said enough and refused to buy me any more booze. He didn't know how much I was buying on my own. My daughter had talked about CR and I knew it was helpful for her. I started coming to show everyone I was once again trying to get better. I really didn't think this would be anything different than the programs I had attended before, but I started a step study. I was humbled once beginning the step study. It made me realize I am not in charge. I knew I was powerless in losing my daughter, and I relied on God to help me through at that time. During the step study, I discovered I was not relying on God to help me with my addictions to alcohol and pills. Principle 1 states, realize I'm not God. I admit I am powerless to control my tendency to do the wrong thing and that my life is unmanageable. This was eye-opening to me. I had tried over and over to not want these addictions and strongholds in my life. I was slowly realizing that I couldn't rid myself of these things on my own. I needed him to get me through just as he had in grieving my daughter. I began seeing how being truthful and honest was pleasing to God. Of course, I knew that before, but I hadn't known how to before. Now I was embracing the truth and seeking the help I needed, both from God and from others. Step 1 says, we admitted we were powerless over our addictions and compulsive behaviors, that our lives had become unmanageable. So I had to step out of my denial of how bad my addiction was. I had to believe and hope that he could restore me. When we lost our daughter, I had to believe in all his promises, and now I had to believe he wanted to help me with my strongholds. Sharing my personal struggles with other women was foreign and intimidating to me. Step 6 says, I was ready to have God remove all these defects of character, and I was. John 4:10, humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. And 1 John 1:9, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just, and will forgive us our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness. So, I thought I was fixed. However, several months after beginning the step study, I felt that because I had learned so much about myself, I could control my drinking. I found out the hard way. It just doesn't work that way for me, and I had a relapse while on vacation. I texted my sponsor while on vacation and told her. Surprisingly, she was not condemning and showed me grace. She said she couldn't wait to see me at group to hear about our vacation. I shared a group and was once again convicted. I have learned that alcohol and pills are idols to me. I allow them to become my gods and dictate the plans for my life. So I had to earnestly believe that God exists, that I matter to him, and that he has the power to help me recover. I always knew he existed, but now I needed to believe that I mattered to him. I believe in these steps and principles. I have to believe God's promises, and I do. Colossians 3:16, let the message of Christ dwell among you richly. I have become more mindful of my surroundings. I listen to Christian music or sermons on the radio in my car instead of country music. I journal every morning. I am purposefully praying. I read my Bible to have strength throughout the day. I am learning to reach out to people, although I really could be better at this. I'm being honest with God, with myself, with my husband, and with my daughters, with everyone. I know now that I don't have to be perfect and that I'm never going to be. I have realized in my strive for perfection, I compare myself to other women. Doing this leaves me fearful, anxious, and full of worry. I still make wrong decisions or choices at times, but I am working on admitting when I'm wrong. And I am still learning to be a better listener, to meet people where they are, and that I do not have to fix people. I meet with my sponsor every couple of weeks. She's guiding me in dealing with situations and people in a healthy manner. She is thoughtful and takes time to understand me. I look forward to coming to see her on Thursdays to share my struggles now. I used to think I was the only Christian woman who had these kind of problems. Now I know I'm not alone and feel safe with sharing with my sponsor and here with the ladies in the small group. So, now I'm in my 4th step study. My first step study was all about not craving alcohol. It has been 39 months since my relapse, and painkillers aren't an issue. With the current step study I am in, I really wanted to focus on maturity in my Christian walk. I thought this would be a breeze. It's proven to be very difficult, a very difficult journey to mature. I am realizing more triggers that I have, how I cope or don't cope, that I am a jealous person who becomes resentful and critical. I know I can be nice, but I'm not always truthful with myself or others. I have a very hard time with reaching out. It's hard to share struggles with other women for me. Steps 10 and 11 are important to me and guide me on how to live my day-to-day life sober. Step 10, we continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. And step 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. I share about CR and what God has done in my life with others, Christian and non-Christian. Talking with other women helps me remember where I came from and helps me remember I never want my addictions to have control of my life again. As a mature Christian woman, I want to hear others, to be slower to speak my opinion. Since giving up drinking and taking pills, my guilt and shame have disappeared. I learned so much in sharing with other ladies. Hearing how they use their tools is so very encouraging to me. I meet with a couple ladies throughout the weeks. My sponsor really does give me encouraging and helpful words. This program is set up to help anyone with any kind of hurt, habit, or hang-up, so that could be everybody. And I would like to encourage any newcomers to really give this a try. Writing my testimony and sharing it with you tonight has been one more step in helping me deal with the truth. Doing my original testimony helped me to understand the timeline of my life and how I coped. I am learning to see my part in the situation. I have realized the truth and needing to be honest if I want to heal. So, to the newcomer, dealing with codependent ways is a process. Being part of a step study helps me to see my ownership. It has truly helped me with my coping skills. So, the song we are about to listen to gave me so much comfort after losing my daughter. It talks about how God holds us through the toughest times in our lives. I hope you find comfort in it as you look at the difficult times in your life. Thanks, guys, for letting me share.